What's going on, guys? We're back at it. It is July 31st and we got out here right at noon, so it's about 12 o'clock, 12:15. And this past couple times that I've been here, it's been super hot, and the water temperatures at the max at like 94 degrees, which I believe put these bass in a funny mood to where they don't want to bite anything. So usually when the water temperature is that hot, I usually like to go really deep or find some sort of underwater vegetation. So I know that this lake right here, this pond that I'm about to go into, has some underwater vegetation. So we're going to actually try to target that area today. And as I can see, it's on a point and the wind is blowing directly to it and across it, so it may set up pretty good today. So we're going to go out here, and my approach is going to be maybe actually before we get to the vegetation, I'm going to fish the edges of the vegetation. If you don't have electronics to find these vegetation areas, you can actually use your baits to help you find it. One way that I like to help me find vegetation is actually using a bait that has treble hooks. So you'll go around the banks and you're fishing, and every once in a while you may snag some vegetation. So you pull off of that vegetation and you keep on throwing to where you feel where you can find that edge. And you can also use dragging bait such as worms or jigs to help you find that vegetation. And once you find that edge, you can go ahead and fish the edges or back off of it and fish the edges with some other baits such as lipless crankbaits or square bills or even frogs. So we're going to go out here and we're going to try to figure them out. But I do have some square bills tied on, lipless crankbaits, and some smaller swim baits, which we're going to actually target the edges before we get into the vegetation. Another thing, you don't always have to use fast-moving baits to fish the edges of vegetation. You can also fish, your worms, your salamanders, or some sort of creature bait if you choose to. So we're actually going to try those approaches first before we actually dive into the vegetation. So once we get into the vegetation, I may try a frog on the top of it, and I'm definitely going to be fishing some sort of worm today. It may be Texas rigged, it actually may be weightless. A lot of the times when you fish a weightless worm, it actually sits on top of that vegetation instead of kind of diving in and getting stuck or hung up. So we're actually going to try some of those techniques today, and hopefully we can land a giant. So y'all come along. Like I said, I wanted to target some sort of vegetation. So if you look over here, there's some vegetation, and it actually drops off into deep water. So this would be a really good staging area for some bass when it gets super cold. There it is, look. Oh.
First cast. Or actually, not first cast. We got it on the frog. Choked it too. Whole frog off. Look at that. So, targeting vegetation with a frog first thing is pretty cool. It's not huge, but we weigh him out. So like I said in the intro, the past couple times I've been here, it has really been a struggle, and the lakes that I've been fishing do not have much vegetation, especially that leads into some sort of deep water. So this lake up here actually has tons of underwater vegetation, and actually vegetation up along the banks where it has shallow water to deep water access. And a lot of the times if it goes into deeper water, those bass can sit up underneath of that vegetation or next to that vegetation either creating some sort of oxygen for them or creating a shady area, keeping the water a little bit cooler for them. The water temperature right now is 91 degrees, so it just tells you how hot this water is. The visibility is pretty good. A lot of the times when you have vegetation in your lakes, the water clarity will be really, really good because it kind of filters out the water, making it a lot cleaner. So we're using just a black and red frog, and as you saw on the second cast into that vegetation, we caught one. So I'm gonna go back along. This vegetation goes all along this bank here, and then there's tons of vegetation on that far side that we can target. I'm gonna keep going along this bank, trying to fish this frog and trying to catch some fish. So let's get another one. About to make a cast out here, just find something good. Sound like a bass eating something. Try one more time with this. In one of my previous videos, I always said, like, when you're trying to figure out fish, keep your head on the swivel, because right here, twice already I heard a bass gulp up some shad coming to the surface and kind of blowing up on some shad. So in a second, I'm gonna throw a square bill over that direction. Crankbait on, where it's going to dive to a certain depth. I actually just have a lipless crankbait on and a square bill, but I'm going to try this real quick. So we're sitting right here on this point, and we're actually throwing out just a tad bit. I'm going to go ahead and start off with our stop and go retrieve. Little side note: when you start fishing, make sure your drag is tightened up to where you need it. When you're fishing it kind of fast and you want it to go to a certain depth, you can also count it down. These baits probably drop about a foot a second, so if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then start cranking it in, you probably have it around the 5-foot depth range. There's one right there. Right where we cast it. He's a little, oh, he got off. But he was a little guy, so keeping your head on that swivel, I saw a couple blow-ups out here. And sure enough, with a couple casts, we just hung into one. As you can see, I'm doing a stop and go retrieve. And what that does, it allows that bait to do a whole bunch of different kind of actions where it may trigger a bass to want to put it in its mouth. Okay, thought we got part of that fish mouth on our bait. Alright, so let's go ahead and count it down. 1, 2, 5. Alright, we're going to start bringing it in.
focus on right there. He wanted that. Fat little rascal. Alright, so in the summertime, you cannot leave them out of the water long. For some reason, they die really quick. 771. Look at that. Giant. There he goes. Alright guys. 771. We were fishing the frog, and like I said, you need to keep your head on that swivel. So I kept the head on the swivel. I kept seeing some blowout or blow ups out here in this direction here. So I took a bait that I like to throw, a bait that I can cover a lot of water with. Man, we just landed a stud on a lipless crankbait. Now let's check your line for abrasions. All right, let's get a drink out there. 771.